We're live already.
Good
10
night to the
seconds.
Belizean people at home and abroad. Welcome to our Monday night 68th edition of Belizean Affair. Sitting with me virtually as my co-host is Mr. Rudy Wade and Mr. Leonard Brackett. Let's go straight to our reading, followed by our prayer to begin our show. Mr. Wade,
Pleasant good night to our viewers and listeners, both at home and abroad.
Mr. Wade, the reading.
It's always a
Yes.
pleasure to be in your company, guys. It's always a pleasure to be in your company, and you know, uh, we I'll go straight to the reading. I'll continue Matthew 7:7 to 14 says, "Ask, and
And it
it
shall be
will be given
unto you,
to you. Seek,
and you shall
and you will
find,
find. Knock,
and it shall be
and
open
it
unto you.
will be opened to you. For everyone who asks, receive, and the one who seeks, find,
Mhm.
and to the one who knocks, it will be opened.
Amen.
Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will
Give him us.
give him a stone? Or if he asks for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then are who are evil knows how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who
Is
is
in
in
heaven
heaven give good things
to you.
to those who ask him?
Amen.
So whatever 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 you wish that others would do to you,
Do unto
do
them.
also to them. For this is the law and the prophets.
Amen.
Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is easy that leads to destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few. That's my reading for tonight from
Amen.
Matthew 7 1 to 7 to 14.
Thank you for reading, Mr. Wade. Go ahead, Mr. Brackett.
We'll just do a little short prayer. My name is Leonard Brackett. I'm one of the panelists for tonight's show. And later on in the program, we expect to have a special guest panelist. Uh, we're looking forward to his presence, to grace us with his presence. And I'll just do the prayer for right now. Divine loving Father, we thank thee for having given us the privilege of life and the opportunity to come before thy presence now and ask that thou must continue to bless our family members, friends, and loved ones, and our country of Belize's people and leadership and the rest of humanity. We pray that thou mayest continue to guide and protect us. We thank thee for the privilege that thou have afforded us to be here among our friends and loved ones. Please help us that we may present a program that is worthy of our people and country, and that something may be said or done that accrues positive benefits to them. For we ask these mercies in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Mr. Chairman, Greg has left us,
Uh,
Leonard. So,
uh, Go ahead. He's back already. He's back already.
Thank you for your prayer, Mr. Brackett.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you for your prayer. With that said, let's go to our first music.
Make I tell you about a old story. How me ancestors them get glory. After war and fight for this land, today I feel proud to be Belizean. And every time I walk through the streets, I feel so blessed, so good and so free. And every time my foot touch the beach, I feel so at peace, thanking God for my country. And I don't know how it make you feel when the breeze such a rock as you start to do up, but I'm kinda living in a fantasy. It's the only place that I wanna be. My Belize, my homeland by the sea, beautiful with the trees and valleys, culture rich with a one big family. All the way from the mountains to the keys, your vacation dream is home to me. Belize. Make I tell you a little bit about my history. Home Belize was a British crown colony. By September 1981, we take back we country in our we hands. And every time I think about Belize, I feel so blessed, so good and so free. Place full of a diversity, we Creole got the culture asli la vie. And I don't know how it make you feel when the drums start snap, make you want to dig it up, but I'm kinda living in a fantasy. It's the only place that I wanna be. My Belize, my homeland by the sea, beautiful with the trees and valleys, culture rich with a one big family. All the way from the mountains to the keys, your vacation dream is home to me. Belize, my Belize, Belize.
Welcome back to our program, People at Home and Abroad. Tonight, gentlemen, we know that the government is doing constitution reform, so that will be our first for tonight. And I have some video clips that I will play because the topic for tonight, based on constitution reform, let us get down and see if we can prove that the PC Act is either constitutional or it is non-binding. And to help us along with this topic, let's go back to the Oceania agenda, where the Attorney General and the Prime Minister had something to say about it. So to our first clip.
So why is the government flouting the referendum law when in regard to Oceania's petition with 22,000 signatures? You last told a reporter you were seeking legal advice. So why is the government flouting the referendum law when in regard to Oceania's petition with 22,000 signatures? You last told a reporter you were seeking legal advice, which is cause for great concern because you are the legal advice.
The government is not flouting the referendum law.
It gives no room for delay, though, sir.
But you asked the question, allow me to respond. The government is not flouting the referendum law.
So why is the government flouting the referendum law when it comes when in regard to Oceana's petition
Gentlemen,
with 22,000 signatures? You last told a reporter you were seeking legal advice, which is cause for great concern because you are the legal advice.
The government is not flouting the referendum law.
It gives no room for delay, though, sir.
But you asked the question, allow me to respond. The government is not flouting the government is not flouting the.
let's, I will take a pass here. The topic will be the PCC thing. Let me switch over. We're having a small technical difficulty. So I will ask you guys to continue that subject. I will be right back.
Okay.
Go ahead, Leonard.
Uh, Thank you very much, sir. As regards to whether or not Jules Vasquez was correct when he queried from our new Attorney General as to why it seemed like they were flaunting the law, he was correct because they were indeed flaunting the law. Despite what the Attorney General stipulated, that they were not flaunting the law. And the reason why he's trying to postulate that they're not flaunting the law is because there's a misunderstanding, according to him, by the public and by Jews about the issue that they claim of two different referendum or two different referendum rules or laws, when in fact our constitution speaks of referendum in the context of what Oceana wanted to do and had followed the laws of the country and qualified by submitting the required signatures to trigger the referendum so that the public would have its say. But our scofflaw government officials are trying to intimate otherwise. That is that the Attorney General was trying to conflate by saying that the PCC referendum act, as he would call it, which is not binding as of right now, that we are having this discussion, and will not become binding until the House of Representatives decides that whatever the Prime Minister gets from the PCC Commission and submit to them for a vote in the House is of substantive enough substance that they would then call for a referendum, which would then have to be authorized by the Governor General. That referendum is not the same referendum that the Oceana people qualified for or submitted their 22,000 signatures from the public, which should have triggered a referendum, and which the public was entitled to have a referendum by virtue of them submitted enough signatures. The government should have gone ahead and obeyed the law, because the law is the law, and the law is already on the book. But in the next clip that my cousin may play later on, you will see that even the Prime Minister decides to conflate and say that, well, he didn't flaunt the law either, but he, in the next sentence out of his mouth, agrees that, yes, he is flaunting the law because of the PCC, which is currently non-binding. The PCC has no effect on our laws as of right now. Nothing that they have done or are doing currently will have any effect on our current laws until it is submitted to the Prime Minister, until the Prime Minister takes it to Cabinet, create enabling legislation, goes to the House and vote on it, have it assented to by the Governor General, put it in Cabinet, in the Gazette, and before any of those, if they actually want to eviscerate or change the Constitution in any massive way, especially derogating people's rights, yes, civil rights, and anything that is under the preamble and sections 3 through 19 and inclusive 20 of our Constitution, they will not be able to do anything about operating under the PCC's effort or trump with the PCC effort anything that is currently in our Constitution. So for all intents and purposes, the referendum that anyone would be referring to when they speak of a referendum under our current Constitution would be the referendum that Oceana wanted, the referendum that we had for the ICJ, and any other such referendum, which is stipulated under the People's Act. So when the learned Attorney General is going to say that, well, there may be two different referendums, all they're trying to do is sucker Oceana out of getting the opportunity to have the referendum, and have gone ahead and, despite Oceana qualifying, they turn around and they negotiated with them to have them pull back the referendum qualification, by the way, which was a derogation of people's right. People have a right to ask for a referendum, and they're trying to block people out from getting or exercising that right. Why? Because they're presuming that, okay, well, if they have another referendum that they have to go after because of wanting to change the Constitution, then they prefer to save the referendum effort that should have gone on under the Oceana criteria. They want to slap that out of Oceana in their hand and take that to themselves, to make them run their own referendum if they actually need one. The House might decide that they don't need a referendum based on whether it gets submitted to them. And they might just go ahead and say, okay, well, we as the legislator, we are empowered to change the Constitution. And if they find that what is brought to them is not substantive enough to trump their authority to make or modify our laws, then they will just go ahead and make and modify our laws. And if it's more than what they are entitled and empowered to do, they will go ahead and ask for the referendum. So there's no guarantee that there's a referendum, despite what the Prime Minister is telling the public.
Mr. Brackett,
Go ahead,
to let
sir.
the people more understand what we are talking about, let us play the clip so they can understand what the present government was trying to do.
So why is the government flouting the referendum law when in regard to Oceana's petition with 22,000 signatures? You last told a reporter you were seeking legal advice, which is cause for great concern because you are the legal advice.
The government is not flouting the referendum law.
It gives no room for delay, though, sir.
But you asked the question, allow me to respond. The government is not flouting the referendum law. Yes, so the Attorney General's ministry is the chief legal advisor. So the Attorney General, myself, I don't necessarily sit and draft all opinions. So within the Attorney General's ministry, there are crowns who would research and advise on these matters. I would review their advice, and if the advice is what having regard to my own research, then based on that, then we provide the advice. But let me say this: Oceana and the government, we are in discussion.
But the law makes no provision for legal advice. The law does not say if you don't want to do it in 6 weeks, seek legal advice. The law is unequivocal, sir. You are finding a shading of meaning when it suits you, but the law is absolute. It says you shall act in such a way.
Well, this is why the government seeks my legal advice, Jules, and that's your interpretation. But respectfully,
But is there an equivocation in the law that it allows you to seek legal counsel? Does it say that? Does it say you have time to review by the government's lawyer?
what I will say is this: Oceana, lawyers for Oceana, and the government, we are in discussion. We don't want to prejudice any discussion that is taking place. But I do believe that within the next week or so, cabinet hasn't. Well, today would have been cabinet. Cabinet will meet next week. I had a meeting with the lawyer for Oceana, Mrs. Jacqueline Marshall, Senior Counsel, on Friday. We'll receive some indication as it relates to a way forward a proposal. Well, in turn, that will be submitted for cabinet. So next week we'll be able to give some definitive answer as it relates to
But
that.
you guys are frustrating a democratic process.
No, we are not. We are not. We are not. We are having a discussion. We are having negotiations with Oceana.
But the law doesn't make provision for that. Either you certify the signatures or you decertify them. Where are you all finding the room to do all of this background negotiation? I'm saying either the law is an ass or it is obeyed.
That is your interpretation, and respectfully, we disagree. The government disagrees.
But I'm reading the law, sir. You are reading from some other book, from the executive playbook of how we do things.
No, Jules. Respectfully, you read the law. You've interpreted the law. There are different laws at play here, and the Referendum Act and the People's Constitution Act. So, as you will appreciate, the People's Constitution Act also speaks to a referendum, and a referendum after the whole consultation process with respect to the Constitution. Again, I don't want to prejudice any particular discussion or that we are having at Oceana, but suffice it to say that there is an interplay. There's a between both the People's Constitution Act and the Referendum Act. There may be difference of opinions as it relates to how the interplay actually operates. If indeed there is an interplay, you take a firm position that, well, there is no interplay. But yeah, but you know, and this is the beauty about the law. You know, the law does.
Gentlemen,
Mr. Chairman, may I get this tickle out of my stomach? I just want to get serious rather than laugh at this
gentlemen,
man clunging
you
himself.
heard the Attorney General. Let's do both videos and then we have a free
No, Mr.
Okay.
Chairman. Yeah. Okay,
do-
Mr. Morrison. Yeah. Mr. Morrison is on. Can I bring him on? And then can you let me go ahead and because by the time the next clip play, I don't want people to forget what the gentleman had just said. You know, I want to attack what he just said directly. Because I also want to
Okay,
attack the next
guys.
clip.
We have our new
Right.
guest with you.
Right.
Welcome to the show, Mr. Morrison.
Good evening,
And
Mr.
with
Brackett
that said-
and Mr. Wade and Mr. Wade
Yes.
and Mr.
Good
Brackett.
evening.
I'm sorry.
Well,
Good evening, sir. Nice to
Your
have you.
presence is highly, highly appreciated, sir. With that said, let's get right into it. Mr. Brackett, we will do 5-minute interval so that we can get a good bite out of everything. Mr. Morrison, I just played a clip by the Attorney General
do you want to play it
having
again?
to do with the Referendum Act.
Yeah, I did see
No.
that some time ago where
Okay.
the Mr. Sylvester was talking about I think he was stepping on his own tail in some regards because he never got anything cogent and out of his mouth that I could quite understand. He was talking about an interplay that he proposed and then he detracted from it. So I never quite understood what he was saying. But I do believe that the Referendum Act that he was talking about, that's constitutional as it stands right now, would have allowed Oceana to proceed with the referendum. And what he was speaking of, I believe, was the People's Constitutional Committee new design on how a referendum was to be approached, and that's not in play yet.
Exactly.
From what I
With
understand.
that said, Mr. Morrison and gentlemen, sitting as my virtual host, let's hear what the Prime Minister have to say on that
Greg,
before we go any further.
Greg,
Let's
I
hear
don't think
what
it's a
the
matter
Prime
of
Minister
willfully
said.
ignoring it, but we felt that since we already have the People's Constitutional Commission ongoing right now, that would be the best place to be able to address it through the PCC, since they were asking even for the amendment of the Constitution. So we felt that it would have been best to do that. But what we've done as a compromise with them, we're working on an amendment, basically, as what we did with the marijuana issue, that whenever, should the day come that we want to do any kind of exploration in the in the sea or the ocean, it depends on, which way they want to take, that then we will then have a referendum. I've not seen the exact wording, but pretty much that's what the Attorney General just briefly shared with me, and I think tomorrow, no, probably next cabinet next week, he will then bring the actual proposal and the wording.
Is this a rule of law issue though? Because I know your government on the side, Musa is the one who first implemented this referendum legislation, and the law does not make a provision for a review, as you all are doing, and make we look point another way. The law says within X number of days, a referendum is triggered if the signatures are certified. You all are playing with the law, it would appear.
Absolutely not. It just so happened that at this moment, we have appointed by law, voted in National Assembly, the People's Constitutional Commission. And so we felt, why go through that? Why spend millions of dollars in a referendum when the People's Constitutional Commission, the commission is going around countrywide, getting recommendations from the different groups of people, different communities, and I hope that within a year's time, I think they have probably at least another 6 months, they can come up with a bunch of recommendations to myself as a Prime Minister as to the way going forward. So I think it was just the opportune time. It's just a matter of timing, and that this is happening at the same time. Obviously, if the PCC was not in effect at that moment, then the law is a law. We'll probably have to go ahead with the referendum.
the law is the
Gentlemen,
law, but he's not following the law.
He's sidestepping the
gentlemen,
law.
based on what the Prime Minister said at the ending, does the PCC Act trumps the Constitution, the
No,
present Constitution? I go
no,
to you first, Mr. Morrison.
That would be a terrible thing if it was to have that trump the Constitution. Then we'd have nothing. So the Constitution remains the Constitution until it's amended. So that's my concern. I think these people, they're not getting proper legal advice. They're not following the law, and so it is troubling. I would hope that there would be someone that could bring a case against them on this matter. I hope Oceana, they seem to be negotiating at this point. I don't know what they hope to get out of that, but I think they could and would have grounds to stand in court to say to a judge and provide the evidence that the government should be following the law, even though it has this People's Constitutional Commission ongoing. It has nothing to do with implementing and following the law as it's currently structured.
I thank you for that input, Mr. Morrison. I go to you next, Mr. Wade.
As first of all, glad to have you, Mr. Morrison.
Thank you, sir.
Glad to have you. We have, touched this subject on numerous occasions, and I have said this, you watch a while this thing play out, and then, like, first of all, you have the Attorney General who is appointed by Briceño and his administration, right? So what do we expect of him, right? To spute, right? Well, anyway, he said what he said, and seemed that he's the Attorney General, and it's final. But anyway,
Well,
My thing
it's
is,
not final, you know. It's not final. As I said, someone could
no, no, it's
challenge it.
final with them. It's
Oh,
final with them, right?
yes, yes.
With them when they're little. Don't get. I know for a fact it's not final, but with
Yeah,
them, because
yeah.
they have an agenda, right? They have an agenda. But anyway, so you want to tell me, guys, that if we come up with 20,000 signature and want to recall Mr. Briceño as the prime minister on a no confident vote, this is exactly what is going to happen. Exactly, right? So,
Skirt the law.
um, I've always said that past and present two-party system are gross violators of our constitution, right? Because why they do it? Because they know the common man, like me, a poor man, and we cannot. We'll have a hard time holding them accountable, right? You're left broke. You have to sell your house, sell all your land, sell everything to have a process, right? So, and it's a repetitious cycle with these guys. I know that referendum, what Oceana wanted to push trigger off, should have happened because you have Belizeans, right, actually sign on to that petition, right, and their wishes wasn't granted, right. Got to go through a whole, like Jules says, either it's legal or it's not legal. Either you're gonna the signatures are legal or it's not legal, right? So we had the buffling of the attorney general, but like I say, right, I it's sad to see, how how power play out. Power, when you have power, right? And this is this is the norm for them. So, like I say, I say this publicly. I want them to enact UNCAC so that these guys eventually will be held accountable, right? Each and every one of them at some point in time. Um, they are the gross violators of our constitution. So, you know, I I am very you know, dismayed to see how these guys act, man, once they have that power, no? And the things they say, right? And it's like just another day, So, back to you, Mr. Chairman, right?
I thank you, Mr. Wade, for your input. Mr. Brackett, the question was, do the present PCC Act trumps the Constitution? The present Constitution. Let me hear you in 5 minutes, sir.
No. No. 2 seconds. You see me smiling or laughing or whatever. I'm not being funny though. Okay? Because that's the answer. Belize only has one constitution at a time. And I presume most countries only have one constitution at a time. And like our learned friend, Mr. Morrison, just indicated earlier in his comments, the constitution of Belize that we currently have and that the government is operating under is not what they're conflating by saying that the PCC that they gave authority to come into existence has any power to trump our current constitution, even though that is what they would want to have the general populace in Belize believe. As I indicated earlier in my earlier comments, a little bit before Mr. Morrison came on, the, the PCC is only collecting information that they will submit to the Prime Minister. The PCC is not making any laws or converting any laws that are currently on the book that the country is managed by or with or through, such as our constitution. Therefore, when the prime minister says that if the PCC was not in existence, he would have obeyed the law, he's conflating and outrightly lying because he knows better. The law is still the law until they get it changed. And just as he said, they will bring whatever they accumulate to him, and he and his cabinet will decide what they're going to take to the House. By then, the PCC is disbanded. The PCC as a body will not have any opportunity to come back and say, well, what was proposed to the House for voting on, or what the House voted on and was passed into law to be assented to by the Governor General and or to be voted on by the people is not what they gave to the Prime Minister, and then the Prime Minister gave discussed in cabinet and brought to the House for the voting. And once that voting takes place in the House, the PCC powers would have long ceased to exist. They would not have been able to reverse that or do anything about that. At the end of the day, when the Prime Minister is saying that he was not flaunting the law when the question was asked of him, but because of the PCC, he has to go along with the requirements that he put in place for the PCC, and presumably then trumping our constitution, which means then that he can't do anything about what our constitution currently calls for under Oceana's request, because of his PCC that has no constitutional power to make or change any of our laws or to authorize any changes of our laws. He's conflating and he's lying. He's bamboozling the public. So my answer still remains no, and no. The PCC does not trump our current constitution, and the Prime Minister should have gone ahead and obeyed the law, as he said he would have done if there was no PCC, because there's no PCC that trumps our current law. So he needs to obey the law. That's it, Mr. Chairman.
I thank you, Mr. Brackett. Let me say this personally. It does not trump our constitution, and it is inconsistent with the present constitution. As I said before, section 5, number 22, and I will play it at the bottom of the screen. Gentlemen, read it for yourself.
I could read it right here.
I just wanted to say that, as Mr. Brackett said, the PCC is an advisory commission, with no power to make law or change the law. It can only recommend the law to the Prime Minister and the cabinet, or changes that could be made to the law to the Prime Minister or the cabinet.
Could I read exactly what you're saying there, Mr. Morrison? Could I read exactly what you're saying there?
Yes. Go ahead, Mr. Brackett. Read section 22. Only 22.
Wait. No, I want to read the words that are exactly what Mr. Morrison was saying, sir. That's what I was trying to get at.
Go ahead, sir.
Exact words. Section 6 of the People's Constitutional Act that they passed, okay, reads as follows. Section 6, subsection 1, the functions of the commission shall be to, paragraph A, conduct a comprehensive review of the Belize Constitution, and paragraph B, prepare and submit to the Prime Minister a final report of its findings of the review. And then we can read, you said 22, you said, Greg? Just a second.
Section 5, number 22. Let me go ahead and
Go
read it
go
since
ahead and
I
read it.
have it here.
Yeah, yeah, go
You
ahead.
have it?
No, no, go ahead and read it. 5 1
Section
submit.
5, number 22 of the People's Constitution Act. A referendum shall be conducted where the National Assembly passes a resolution declaring that the matter stated in the report, whether the Belize Constitution shall be repealed and replaced or amended, is of sufficient national importance that it
Mm-hmm.
should be submitted to the electors for their view through a referendum. Now, Section 522 that I just read is unconstitutional. It is inconsistent with the present Constitution because when the Governor General signed that, assented it, she could not give the present governor any powers under national security. Parliament does not have the right to decide if the people should have a referendum on national security. That is the people's right under
Mandamos.
national security.
It's
Let
a
me hear you
mandamos
on
that
that,
requires a
Mr.
plebiscite.
Morrison.
Well, I totally agree with that, and I believe that in some ways the government is trying to buy a way out of doing what is its responsibility, and we can only hope that someone will hold them accountable. And the reason why they're now negotiating with them is kind of blindsided to me, because they should hold them accountable to do what they're required to do by law. And this type of pass is what destroys our democratic process, and what empowers them to act in this way continuously. So I just hope
Mhm.
that somehow where there are people that will hold the government accountable to do what is to be done under the Constitution. Now, to go a little bit farther, if I just step back and look at what Oceana did in bringing about this voting to set this in play. I do believe, though, that in Belize we need to broaden the capacity of our income stream. And I believe that if there's resources in the sea, we should have the ability, this is my belief, to determine and to do seismic testing, and to determine at some point in the future if we want to actually make economic productive use of that resource. I'm still concerned about all the safety and concerns of protecting the reef and the ocean and all that. But if there's sufficient resource there that could change the dynamics of the country, we see countries like Guyana reaping
Mhm.
significant um, income stream from their oil development and stuff in their seabed, and probably Belize have some potential to achieve that in some areas. So I don't want to have a block that cannot be done, and so I'm one of the persons that want the government to follow the law, and I do want them, when they have that referendum, I would be in support of that, as contrary to what Oceana wants. I would want that referendum to pass, and I would want to have the ability for government to be able to do the seismic studies, and to, in some other process, determine if we should go ahead and exploit that resource. And when we do it, we have to do it sustainably. We have to do it in ways I'm thinking that there are ways in the United States and in other places where companies put aside. You never know what damages and stuff could be done, but they put aside, even before they start anything, a trust fund to deal with cleanup. And as they get more money is deposited into that fund, and there's proper ways that they deal with how these wells and stuff are closed off safely, capped and stuff to protect them for some very long time, and funds to maintain them when they're no longer in use. So that's how I believe.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Morrison. While I will not disagree with your belief, we have to remember what happened in the Gulf of Mexico and what it did to Louisiana and all those shores along that way. It corrupted the water and hampered the fishermen. Gentlemen, I've said it more than once. We heard what the Prime Minister said. He would have obeyed the law if they didn't have the PCC Act in present. No, I always say that these people telling themselves, let's go to 2 more tapes to prove to the people at home and abroad what is really happening. In this way, we will know if the People's Constitution Act is truly binding and it trumps our Constitution.
Persons that represents a cross-section of our nation, what it is that we have been tasked to do. And the main issue that the PCC has taken on board is that before we can consult with Belizeans on what they would want to repeal or amend or change in their constitution, should first begin with, do we know what is in this document? And so the starting point would be awareness and education. So from June to, sounds like the hurricane season, June to November, but from June to December 15th or beyond, 2023, the PCC has chosen its approach to this document by launching what we call public outreach campaign, which is what we're doing here tonight. And this is what we're doing in other areas. And even in the diaspora, we have Zone 5, which is talking to the Belizeans who live in the diaspora. So it's a comprehensive approach to try to engage the people of Belize at home and abroad on what we're doing. So this awareness campaign is of critical importance. Next year, God willing, we come back into the communities, having heard what you will probably be expressing tonight, how you will respond to the citizens survey, and maybe questions and concerns you have, to consult with you. So tonight,
gentlemen, the chairman of the commission just proved that the Prime Minister was speaking out of context when he spoke about a referendum in the PCC Act, trying to make it look like the PCC Act had all the power. No, let's hear what he had to say.
And also, I know that there are a lot of different different groups that wanted to be in the commission, but we've already been at what, 25 members. And if we continue taking more and more, it's going to be unwieldy. We'll not be able to do anything. Actually, I have wanted to cut down the numbers on the commission. You see, because it's important to point out that the commission is not going to decide what is going to be approved. They are just going to be the vessel for the process. They are going to be out there listening to the recommendations from different people. I want to assure everyone that you all have access to speak to the committee. You can put in writing your proposals, or can go and talk to the committee. At the end of the period, we hope that with 1 year, that we want them to be able to finish the consultations, and probably another 3 or 6 months at most to put their recommendations together. That has to go to a referendum. So it's not a matter of whatever they decide, or we from the government will decide what is going to be approved. The changes. it will go to referendum, and at the end of the day, it is the Belizean people that will have the final say.
Well,
And
I
you
don't know.
heard it for yourself.
Yeah, I don't know if he clears his throat intentionally when he knows he's not telling the whole truth, but he, he sure did it a few times there when he got on points that I was sure was not the whole truth.
No, gentlemen,
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Morrison.
Mr.
Yes,
Chairman,
sir.
uh, can I read this stuff again? The piece that 22, part 5,
Yes.
section 22, because just what the Prime Minister stipulated in his words there just now, needs to be contextualized with what they have in the document.
Go ahead, sir.
A referendum shall be conducted where conditional, right? Where the shall become a conditional. The shall, which tells you that shall meaning have to or need to, or less likely or more likely that you should. Shall means more likely that you should conduct one referendum. But they are putting a conditional word where whether the National Assembly passes a resolution declaring that the matter stated in the report, whether the Belize Constitution should be repealed and replaced or amended, is of sufficient national importance that it should be submitted to the electors for their view through a referendum. A lot of conditional statements there that takes away the effects of shall be conducted. A lot of qualifiers. And the purpose of those qualifiers is because the legislator is empowered to change the laws. Only the things that they can change, that the Constitution requires a referendum for, they would ask for a referendum. So whether the matter submitted to them is of let me read it again. That the matter submitted in the report, whether the Belize Constitution should be replaced, repealed and replaced, or amended, is of sufficient national importance. So if it's not of significant or importance as they deem in the House, they will have no need for a referendum because they are already empowered to make changes to the laws. But they know what they're after, and what they're after requires a referendum. So they're going to go through all the shenanigans and encourage the people to have them authorize a referendum, so that what they want to have in the final product, the referendum will stipulate as to yes or no, we need to change the Constitution. But when they take that change to the Constitution to the people to vote on, they will not explain or let the people determine in the volume of that material if they can even understand it. Because we have had 40 odd years now, and they still don't understand or have read the current Constitution. But hopefully, they will make an educated decision on the new proposed Constitution. How the hell people going to ever arrive there? When in fact, they are going to make a decision in Cabinet on what the PCC submits. As the Prime Minister stood up there in the House and said, they will not be making, the PCC is not the ones making the decision. They are only collecting the information to bring to him that he will take to his Cabinet and discuss and put into a drafted form for them to have taken over to the House for the House to vote on. But the House will only vote to have a referendum if it's anything that is substantively beyond their powers of lawmaking capabilities that they are currently authorized under the current Constitution. It doesn't say that they will or they must, or as the Prime Minister said, the people will decide. The people will decide if they, the legislator, read the documents, read what they have in black and white. The people will decide if they, the legislator, deems that it is of substantive importance enough to call for a referendum so the people can decide. They're talking with forked tongues. And there are other parts, but Mr. Chairman, I just have to make a read part to conceptualize it, what the Prime Minister was saying.
Gentlemen, as I said before,
Bunch of scam.
Section 5, Chapter 5, Section 22
That's what I
is
just read.
inconsistent with the present Constitution.
Null and
It
void.
is null and void. The present government cannot decide on national security. That power lies in the people. So they are speaking out of context, as one may know. And furthermore, the PCC cannot change anything. The power lies with the people, regardless of they like it or not. Mr. Wade, let me hear you on that.
No, first of all, I have said on numerous occasions that, as for me, Rudy Wade, I don't see nothing wrong with our constitution, personally, right? Um, they could strengthen it, add, like I mentioned, a couple of things that I would like to see they enshrine in it, like, again, elected senators, not appointed, and pass a law in the constitution, enshrine in the constitution that UNCAC must be fully implemented, right? That's just two of the items that I would like to see them add, right? Now, you hear conflicting report, guys, when these guys started out, you hear about know your rights. Yes, when they started out, know your rights, and then, different things start to happen, and now they are at, educating the public and listening to the public, and now, gather information from the public. And now you hear about a citizen survey, right? It's just to show you that, it's a whole bunch of confusion, right? But not forget, that these guys know exactly what they are doing at the end of the day, right? Yeah, the Prime Minister, what he says, right? And how he said it, right? So I don't know who buys it, right? I don't know who bite that bait. And I don't know who bite that bait from the Constitution Reform Committee, right? So personally, I think that at the end of the day, these guys will get what they want because they know what they want. That report, guys, that is going to come back from that committee, you know what they're going to do with that? I don't want to say it, right? But it'll be a no show, right? Because they already have something lined up as to what they will take. You hear the man say about a referendum, right? One say you cannot have a referendum and this and about and he says, yeah, you must have a referendum, right? After all this is over. But my thing is that when I go and vote in that referendum, and I'd like to say this, these guys will bamboozle to get what they want, just like what the UDP did when they wanted a yes to the ICJ, right? I was disenfranchised. They find a way. All along I was a Belizean. All along I was good. And all of a sudden when I went for my birth paper, can't find it, right? So, but anyway, just because that there were some groups that was a no to the ICJ, and I was part of that, no to the ICJ, right? But you see, at the end of the day, they get what they want, right? They got their yes, whichever way and however they got it, they got it. So this administration, like I say, in my personal view, that you hear certain ministers talk about new identity, right? Oh, and not to mention, I say, yeah, they visit the diaspora and they consulted with the diaspora, and they know damn well that the diaspora can't vote, They know that they don't get them the power, right? So that shenanigans played out, right? But my thing is that, these guys, are a bunch of hyenas, right? They're a bunch of scoundrels, right? Because in my personal view, that the way they are going, they want to change this country into a republic, right? They want to separate, because here you hear talks, I'm talking about here in Belize now, right? And has been going on over the years, that they want to separate ties from the crown, right? And we need a new identity, right? That those things are venom out here in this country, right? And whoever watched it.
We're not going to be Belizeans anymore, Mr. Weird.
Now,
our identity is not Belizeans anymore.
No, I don't know if people take the things that these guys say seriously, But personally, as a Belizean, and I know a lot of them, I take them seriously, right? So my thing is that the worst is yet to come. Although we know they are gross violators of our present constitution, right? It happens over and over. And I agree with what Mr. Morrison said, that I hope that, and I share the same sentiment, that one day that they will be held accountable. Somebody will come and hold them accountable one day for the things that they do, right? Until then, said Leonard, and we all know they have the super majority. They could do and say whatever they want to do and say, and it's a habitual practice, and they have been doing it. So, like I say, God forbid that, these guys get to push through their agenda, right? And the end result is that, and in the end, I would like to see what people will be voting on the referendum after all this shenanigan is over with. I would like to see the line item. Or and I could say what's going to be two of them. Do you want to get rid of the governor general, and if you want Belize to become a republic, right? And want to shiver ties from the crown. Those three items for sure will be
mandatory
on that. And I hope I live to see, right? Let them prove me wrong. But like I say, it's a shame to see how these guys operate, man. And they have no regards for people. Once they get power, they have no regards. They don't consult people, right? They say they do, but in essence they don't, because you want to tell me that in 18 months they could so sure that they consulted, and they use the word, and word have meaning, everybody. They need to stop that. As you go to some of these town hall, 5, 6, 15 people, that's not everybody, but that's the perception that they're putting out there, right? So at the end of the day, back to you, Greg, like what you says, they use consultation for a yes. They say, oh yeah, we consulted everybody, and this is what we're going to do. This is the end result for that concept. So we, the people gave them that mandate because they have consulted, right? So, the worst is yet to come, guys, right? In my view, right? So, back to you there, Mr.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Wade. Mr. Morrison,
well,
let me hear you on that.
Yeah,
because I believe that the government is hell-bent and violating our constitution by passing legislation and making legislation that is inconsistent with the present constitution, even though they took an oath to uphold the constitution.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. Brackett. You know, it truly bothers me when the Attorney General um, is not following the Constitution, because it is his responsibility
First and foremost.
to ensure and protect the Constitution of the country. His other role then is to advise the government, right? But his primary responsibility is the protection of the Constitution. And so when he plays this funny game of talking about the PCC and convoluting the whole issue with something that he knows is not part of the Constitution and it should have no effect on the Constitution. It may have some issues with their financing and timing and stuff that they may want to talk about, right? But he cannot bring that up as an issue of saying this other PCC issue is in fact part of the Constitution and is affecting how they're to move forward with this particular referendum, right? So that is very annoying. Um, as I said, he as the Attorney General has the primary responsibility of protecting the Constitution of Belize.
There's a purpose to their madness, though, sir. And it appears that the Attorney General understands his assignment, as the Prime Minister would say. So that's the reason why, even though he may know better and ought to know better, and from what I know of the good gentleman, he's capable of better, he chooses to serve his master. When in fact, we, the Belizean people, are his master and the master of the Prime Minister and all other cabinet members. But that's not the way they look at it or operate. And if they would operate as such, Belize would be a much better country, far better off, and would be in a much better position or situation today as we are speaking. Which is unfortunate that it's not.
Hence the reason why I said, give me a minute there, guys, right? Hence the reason why I said that, like you said, Leonard, the assignment, right? Hence the reason why I said that these guys should be elected, not appointed, elected by the people. That's another post that I would like to see people elect these guys.
Greg, we lost Mr. Morrison. Do you know of anything that?
Yes, I saw that. We'll just wait as
Okay.
we go along to see
go ahead, Mr. Wade.
he will come back. Go ahead, Mr. Wade.
We're talking over you, sir.
It's like that's a typical example, Leonard. You said they got to they understand their assignment, right? That's why I talk about what I would like to see in that constitution reform, right? That's another item I would like to see add.
And
right?
the Attorney General is unelected too, right?
Unelected, he's appointed, right? He's appointed. So that's why I'm tying all that in. I'm tying in what you say, their assignment. You think that he will go contrary to his boss that appoints him? Come on, man. What world we living in? I mean, these things got to stop. That's why I say that we need elected senators. People elect, not appointed. You see the mess up. You see the things that these senators does. They follow the leader and one behind the other. One behind. Nobody. I yet to hear from the while I'm on that. I yet to hear from the church senator. I yet to hear from him on the matter of the constitution reform, right? He says nothing, right? They're all, you see that lead senator, he plays a big role, because he got to make lot of
representative.
rounds, a lot of calls to this one and that one and this senator, and so and so and so, I want you this and this, I promise you this, I promise you that. No, nobody contravene these guys. Nobody go behind. Contrary to these guys, the government, past and present, right? No other senators go contrary to that lead senator agenda. These things got to stop, right? I'm talking real now, right? So like the attorney general, like I say, I'd like to see that court.
There's a thing called subordination, Mr. Wade.
Yes.
Remember that?
Right? Yes, exactly. Yeah, there you
And
go.
what
Right?
they are being subordinated
Yeah.
with and for, or the cause of their subordination. We
Like
could
the
only
good man,
speculate.
like the good man says that he should know better, right? He should know better and know the right thing to do,
Yes, sir.
right?
Greg?
Yes, sorry.
Oh,
sorry
Like Mr. Morrison says,
yeah, sorry, I lost
he should know
connection.
better,
no problem, sir.
right? He said
Thank you very much,
the
sir.
attorney general should know better, right? But he
Mr.
have
Wade,
to
you are
go,
so right.
right? He got to
Gentlemen,
go with his assignment, right? So
gentlemen, the question is, when it comes to foreign investors, can the present government put a cap and open tenure? And to answer that, let's go to this clip.
Well, the particular legislation, presently I think they're still working on it and to see what can be done to be able to present to cabinet.
What's being done is this draft, still in the strikeout stage, but it shows the major thrust of the proposed legislation. The Belize Cruise Ship Docking Facility and Tourism Village Development Bill is created to provide for the development of a cruise port docking facility and tourism village, and to provide for certain exemptions and benefits and for the levy of a cruise ship facility fee, normally what you'd call a head tax. The bill provides for a fiscal incentives order, which entitles the developer to large tax exemptions. But not any developer, one who meets the investment requirements, quote, of not less than $250 million, we assume US dollars. And how many proposed ports fit into that category? Presently, only one, Portico, whose investors say...
Now, gentlemen, the question was, can the government put a cap when it comes to foreign investors to open tenure? I go to you first, Mr. Brackett.
The answer is no again. Simple. They just can't do that, and they know they're not supposed to try and go around the okay. There's what you call international treaties that we sign with other countries, and then there's our local laws, rules, prescripts, and statutory instruments, and a whole lot of other, means and methods for which the government manages governance affairs. And if they were to go there and say, okay, well, only people who are willing to put up $300 million can participate in the tourism industry, for all intents and purposes, the people in down south that built the airport and have the airport operating, they didn't spend no $300 million. Does that mean then that their contracts will be rescinded? Because they would not have met the standards that are required. But that's not even the issue. That is just something that they put out there to distract, divert, and take up people's attention while they're actually getting done what they're really after or want to do. In the first place, they could have just as well said, okay, well, or make a law saying that they can't have more than one port in the Belize area to start with. Because we now know that there's 3 ports being proposed for that area. or 3 different organizations trying to create their own port. Portugal is the last one that came in the show and appears to be the one of preference right now on behalf of the government. Why? As I stipulated before, on many other occasions, it seems like, will not seem like I know for a certainty. So that's the reason why I could say it the way I say it. I don't need to qualify. This Portugal operations, as I previously stated outrightly, is Mr. Briceño's baby. He has interests in this structure, for which reason he has decided that since they are already elected, they don't have to wait till they get another election to force through what they're trying to force through right now down our throat, to come up with documentations that would allow this political organization to step ahead of the 2 other existing port organizations and have its way to one day become the premier port that will overshadow the Feinstein port that may not get built, and the Ashford port that may not get permission to build, when in fact the current Portico is building without present permission, but with the acquiescence of the government to not do anything about stopping them from violating our current laws, because they have no signed agreement to facilitate them right now, under which they can declare that they're able to spend the money that they're spending. But the money that they're spending, they are now claiming that if we were to stop them, we will have to pay them back. And they want us to pass laws that will favor them and put our country over a barrel, that if any other government should come into existence and decide, you know what, this wasn't a good deal, it wasn't right what was done, and we want to make sure that it's corrected. You can't get it corrected, because the laws would have then said that based on the agreement that the previous government signed, you have to live with that, with those criteria. And not only that, but the laws in the agreement says that the government have to make certain laws favorable to Portugal only. And within 25 miles of their facility, no other facility can be allowed to survive or exist, when there are 2 other facilities within that 25 miles jurisdiction. You might say, give it 20 miles or 50 miles, but those kind of rules or laws should not be embedded in our constitution, to the point where no other future government can tamper or bother with it or correct it, because that is what they're intending to do, especially now that they have a super majority. And the UDP is, doing on their heels, not getting their act together, so that they could probably become a future government in the near future. So these guys are laughing to the bank. They took away the Vice Bolido that was giving the government from $6 million a year, and had they, instead of taking away, had decided to go ahead and change the taxation codes on them, and maybe double up the price to the 12.5% that Mr. Briceño was saying that they should have been paying. That's the way they should have gone. Get the extra 12 million instead of 6 million, double up the amount. And Portugal, guys would have still kept their contract, would have still been making the money the last 6 months of the government, money that was not made and has not gone into a treasury. And now they're going to take all treasury here, guys, the broken contract and settlement out of our treasury. But enough of which treasury will end up with the Bolido and the fee. But another government will end up doing it and make all the money. They're proposing to give it to Stan and Conis again, thanks to Mr. Briceño, 3 other people that they have already identified. If you took the stuff from bribes, you should have kept it for the government to make the money and make all the money. The government needs as much money as it can make. People are still buying Bolido, regardless of who they run it. But why take it away from one and give it to another one? And still they not care for that one to take it from broken contract. That don't make no kind of sense. Other than because you favor somebody else to get the money and make the money, so you could get on top the political campaign. That's the way the game is played. Really, time is running out. Right.
I thank you for your input, Mr. Morrison. We know that under the Fair Trade Act, that the government cannot put a cap when it comes to open tenure. It's illegal. Period. We just saw what happened with Coralia and the
Mm-hmm.
bus service. Let me hear your comment on that, sir.
Well, I do agree that it is illegal, and I don't know under what um, rules they're imposing those type of condition, because it is clearly not a proper contract to the way it is structured. But unless people challenge these things in court
Mm-hmm.
and bring them up and hold the government accountable, as I said earlier in the other instance, it's going to keep happening. And these entities have the resources to do it,
Mm-hmm.
and the law, I believe, is on their side. So it is up to them to make that and to hold the government accountable. Um, my big concern about the port was some indications that there was some land sold to private individuals, some of the mangrove land. I
Mm-hmm.
think almost 400 or 500 acres,
Was illegal
and
as well,
it was illegal. And
contrary to our
then
current laws.
yeah, and then whoever, it was sold to private individual for a relatively small sum of money,
Mm-hmm.
and
That's a
then
scam.
2 weeks before, it was turned around and sold to the people that are part of the port development. So all those things are concern to me, and I'm hoping that we have ways, legislation. I know the legislations exist, that we could reverse some of these sales. That there's enough and clear wrongdoings that could make some of these sales illegal. They are illegal, but be found illegal in a court of law, so that they can be reversed, and so that the people, right, can get their just payment for these land deals that's happening. We have
Lack of
seen it.
goodwill.
We have seen it so many times. We have seen it so many times that the nation is abused. The national treasury is abused,
Mm-hmm.
where these things happen, where they just make these little private deals and quick sale, turn around, sell it to the intended buyer, and then the government makes nothing. What's $100,000 for all that land? You know, why can't we find these people criminally and fraudulent for their dealings? Those are the things that concerns me on these type of deals.
Sanctioned by cabinet and voted and empowered by the legislative body of the country, which then puts the country over a barrel because then these guys can take any such documentation to any court and prevail, as we have
Mhm.
seen happen with Ashcroft over and over and over. And it's not
Yeah,
because these guys don't know better or haven't learned. They know exactly what they're doing.
yeah, yeah,
It's
yeah.
screwing the country.
Yeah, it's just corruption. It's plain and simple corruption, and we need to. I'm not. I'll tell you, Mr. Wade, I'm not a big supporter of UNCA. And the reason I am not is because I believe that while I believe in principle, we need to follow those. We need to have them help us structure our system so that it is accountable. I don't like having foreign entities
Meddling,
and lawyers,
interference. Sometimes they do more bad than good.
yeah, in our individual lawmaking and stuff, and prosecute, in particular, prosecution. I don't mind them advising us how to structure and to make things more transparent and such, but when they're involved in the financing of of how the prosecution is to, because always these prosecution will need financing, right? To Because the government is not going to finance themselves to be prosecuted. So this money comes usually from some outside entity, and that concerns me because to me it seems like you give up a little bit of your sovereignty. But most importantly, the prosecution to me becomes subjective to what is in the interest of that organization. And always it is not the national interest or the best interest of the nation. So I personally would like to see that we work with UNCA and those organizations to help develop the framework of maintaining our laws and how our laws should be structured, but not in the realm of participating in the prosecution of wrongdoers.
I, I
Mr.
also,
Morrison,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman.
Morrison, while I understand where you are coming from, I would have to disagree with you because at present we have at least nearly 50 individuals who have not disclosed their yearly assets that should be disclosed.
79. I think 79 of them.
So it has went up. And also, um, past
But
and
that
present
has nothing.
government,
But that has nothing to do with income, Mister Brackett, because the laws for doing what they should be doing is there, right? And there are laws that could prosecute them and hold them accountable. The DPP could hold them accountable for what they're not doing. We don't need UNCA to enforce that, right?
Well,
Well,
the
as
reason
I
the
agree,
reason for UNCA,
I agree with your view. I mean, I don't agree with that's your personal, take on that, right? But living this and seeing the abuse over decades, I was a I was a public servant. I was a law enforcement officer in my country, right? And you cannot persecute these guys, right? Although you know that they are the biggest crook, cannot persecute them. And it's been going on too much, right? So my view, I think that we need an outside entity, like what happened in other countries. The 90, 100, and you violate the people and your country in whichever way, assets illegally obtained in any way, they get away till 90. UNCA come, foreign entity come and hold these people accountable.
Mr.
Because if you
Wade,
left the
I agree.
Belizean in this country, none of them would ever go to jail. And they are the
Mr. Wade, I
biggest
agree with you.
crooks.
I agree with you 100%. I will come to you, Mr. Brackett. Let me say this, right? We need Wunkak for a specific reason. A prime example is the Civil Assets and Explain Wealth Bill that was passed that the present government does not want to make retroactive. They only want to go back to 12 years. And I mean, anybody then knows what happened in the past years in the PUP regime. With the port, with the airport, we need to have it retroactively, Mr.
Well,
Brackett.
I don't want to throw
At least 25 years, Greg. At least go back. I say 30,
Well,
right?
I don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater on it because I do want something to be enacted. And I had listened to some comments where they said that if there's some special circumstances, you could actually file to go back farther than the 12 years. I don't remember what all those special circumstances were, but I would rather take something now and keep moving forward than to stall everything now than and not enact
but
anything on
uh,
that principle.
Mr. Morrison, the, while I would agree with you partially on getting something rather than nothing, the getting of the something that they're after is is getting of the previous government officials rather than getting themselves now or themselves when they were the previous government under their situation, which is what Mr. Wade is referring to. If they go
No,
back far
but
enough,
if you
And
go
they
12,
keep
wait,
if you go
coming
12,
back.
if
yeah,
you go
And they
12
keep
years now,
coming back.
no, if you go 12 years, you got them now too, because they're
no,
part of
yes,
the
but no, no. The 12 years was when they just got into office. They start advocating that 12-year business, which
yeah,
is about capturing
but
all
it
the
would capture them
ill.
now too for what they
Yes,
may have
but
done.
that's not what they were after. Or that's not. They will not prosecute any of their own. None of the governments, when they are in
None
power,
of
would
them
do
will
that. They
prosecute
always
their
start the
own.
good talk when they are out of government,
Hmm.
because that's
Guys,
what the decennial government
name me
said
a
before
name
they
me
got
a
elected. They
minister.
promised us that
Name
they
me
was going to implement UNCAC.
government official, elected official that went to jail. Although we
Yeah,
know them, you know.
okay. But my point,
Name me
my
one.
point, my point then was that as far as accountability is concerned, we cannot get accountability out of any of our government officials then through the means of any of our present or past government,
It's not
because they
okay.
don't prosecute their own
It's not okay
and they
at
don't
all.
prosecute the others. As a matter of fact, to any degree of
And
accountability,
and
they
and that's
don't.
why we need a little better independence
And
in our
UNCAC would do that
judiciary.
for us because UNCAC would have international reach. They'll have the reach of the international law. You know, what they call it, Interpol. All these organizations work and help UNCAC. They can reach foreign to foreign countries' banks accounts and banking systems and things that these guys think that they're immune and they can hide away from local Belize law.
Exactly.
They own all the assets then
Exactly.
that they steal from us in other names and other corporate entity bogus names that they
Man, you know,
create.
if it's illegal, it's illegal. Don't care who you are, right?
Mr. Brackett, we are at time. Are we
You,
going to
you know, you need to
extend?
be held accountable at some point.
I guess we could go to Mary 35 just so we can get
You
amenities
know,
to close out now, because
Okay,
otherwise
Mr.
we're
Morrison,
gonna bump up against crash.
right. Mr.
We don't want to crash,
Morrison,
huh?
Yes.
just to prove to you what I am trying to say, the present government does not want to persecute their own, but they want to come at the Belizean people,
Mm-hmm.
as though the Belizean people are the ones that are committing these crimes. And to prove it to you, I will go to this clip.
Today, the Civil Asset Recovery and Unexplained Wealth Act was the focus of a joint initiative between the Financial Intelligence Unit FIU and the U.S. Embassy's Bureau of International Narcotics and Law Enforcement Affairs. This act gives the FIU the authority to recover assets and wealth acquired by individuals through criminal means. These persons will be investigated, and according to the Financial Secretary Joseph Waite, anyone who's living in Belize can be the subject of the investigation.
This basically says, look, with the capacity and the training that we hope to get over in the coming months, this will give the authorities the tools to be able to say, look, if something looks cute, something looks funny, something looks unexplained, look into it and see. If it's proven that it is from an illegal source, it can be seized. No?
Includes everyone,
Yeah, everyone.
including the Prime Minister,
Yeah, he's a citizen as well. Yeah.
the leader of a religious community.
Anybody who has unexplained wealth.
The legislation empowers the FIU to obtain an unexplained wealth order in case of suspicion. Once the court order is issued, the subject will be compelled to elucidate and disclose the origins of their assets and wealth before the High Court. Lenny Isigiri McGann is the director of the FIU.
We are the primary agency that will be responsible for making.
You're guilty
Now,
until
Mr. Morrison, do you see where I'm coming from?
I do agree that we need to do something, but I still stand on the position that I believe that moving UNCA into this realm in some way deprive us of some of our sovereignty in terms of controlling how, because these organizations, as benign as we want to look at them, they have their agenda. They have an agenda And if somebody is opposed to whoever that organization funding is coming from, they're going to be the vice of the prosecution. So we cannot. We have to look at it as human
An,
have
ex-
corruption
an,
at
an
all
existing
levels.
an existing example of what you just described, Mr. Morrison, is the same tape that we just listened to. Who were the people making the presentation on the tape? Who were the overlords over the government officials?
Hmm. Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
exactly as you described it. That's what
yeah,
the tape was all about.
yeah, yeah. So that's my concern. I do
No, I'm
believe
saying
that
it's going on right now, even without UNCAC. That's my point, though. You know, I
yes,
mean, I was
yes,
trying to be
yes.
facetious, no?
No, I understand. I understand. So my concern is that even with UNCA, we are not going to get that level and of control, and we're going to be losing our sovereignty. And I believe that what we should be doing is making more independent our judiciary, strengthening our judiciary so that it is given a not yearly allotment, but a
Not in
specific.
Belize, my brother.
We,
Not
we,
in
had,
Belize.
A
Not in
specific,
Belize.
yeah,
we
a
had a good
Not
specific
in
we had a good
Belize.
Supreme
percentage.
Court judge,
Yeah,
Mr. Rana,
Not in Belize.
no,
who would
but
have
I
held
believe,
she would have held any and every one of them to account if
yeah,
we choose to file against
yeah,
them.
yeah,
But they don't
I,
want her. They
yeah,
want somebody that is pliant to their wishes and
yeah,
objectives.
and
I
I
wish
do
we could have
believe
sued
that.
them individually or personally when they commit a crime, rather than
Yeah,
sue them as a part of the government, and we, the very same government, have to turn around and pay
the
for the
fee.
lawsuit.
Yeah,
I wish we
I
could
do
get them
believe
personally.
we need a independent judiciary, more independent, and we also need to make sure that the budget for the judiciary is not based on yearly allotment, but as a specific percentage of GDP. That's how we should be funding our judiciary, so that it's not
The good one.
discretionary. It's not discretionary, and we should have more tenure, longer period of appointment for our justices. But I believe in some times we had miscarriage of our justice, with justices ruling too broadly, like we did in the Maya land claim with Justice Chief Justice Contact. And so I think that we need to make sure that those panel are empowered with sufficient individuals, so we get a diversity of ideas and opinions and expertise when they're making their ruling.
But the matter went all the way to the Caribbean court. It went to the Supreme Court as well
Yes, yes,
as the appellate court,
that it
and it
did.
went to the Caribbean court, and we
It
still end up
did.
with the same outcome
Yes, it did.
because it's a knucklehead government.
No, I agree. I agree that the Mayans, we got into a different side subject, but the
Yeah.
Mayans are entitled to communal land rights, right? That's not the argument.
And
But
even
but
they are
what
trying to
what he
overplay
did,
their hand right now.
but that was not the case that was presented to the court initially. The
Right.
case was just a logging concession and making sure that the government had adhere to what the Mayans um, requirements were for granting that concession.
The
And
matter
then
did not have ended up in court to start with if we had an attentive government that was
yes,
truly involved in
yes,
looking after the interests of the country. But
that's
these
correct.
jackals, hyenas, and vultures, and
Yeah,
vipers, and bats, and whatever you want to call them, vampires or whatever, they're not about the people's business, which is what aggrieves me. And every time when I get up on my stump and I start telling about myself in that kind of way, they want to go right last to try to say, well, I can't talk to them like that or about them like that. To hell with them. Do the right thing, and I don't have to talk nothing about you, whether you're good, bad, or indifferent. I'm no respect to a person when you're mess around with my country and my people.
I can't see how I could condone, these guys,
You want to be,
and
you want to be
to
respected,
condone
respect
them
yourself and
to
others.
they you know do the things they
Just chance.
continuously doing, right? And they
Greg,
come
Greg,
right back in your face, and
Right.
I cannot condone
got
that
me,
at
Greg?
all.
Yes, I do. Mr.
Okay.
Weir, gentlemen, I thank you for being a part of this presentation and this our 68th edition of Belizean Affairs. I would like to have you back Wednesday night, Mr. Morrison, to continue
No,
this
no, no.
discussion.
It's not possible on
know?
Wednesday. Wednesday, I think, is this program, right, Mr. Morrison?
Yeah. I have
Wednesday,
another program
he's
on
got a program.
Wednesday.
Okay, well, at least on Friday. But again, we thank you for being a part of us tonight, as well as all the people at home and in the diaspora who have tuned in to hear
We never
our
acknowledge
segment
we
of
never acknowledge the viewers.
Belizean affair.
You want to take 10
And
seconds and
we
acknowledge
also
a couple
will
people?
thank our viewers. With that said, gentlemen, we have to leave at this time.
Ancestors, them get glory. After war and fight for this land, today I feel proud to be Belizean.